Today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners, who for more than 25 years have successfully delivered interim and permanent leadership talent to transform businesses. To hire the talent you need to enable your business to thrive, visit www.progressotalent.com today. Vlad Nanu is founder and co-CEO of Amdaris, founded in 2009 with Andy Rogers, with a vision to transform the world of technology. Amdaris today employs hundreds of talented people across sites in Bristol, Moldova, Ukraine and Romania to produce industry-leading software. The team also has a sales office in Dubai and is expanding its reach further with a new delivery centre opening in Bulgaria next month and plans for further expansion across Europe. A passionate wood turner and motorcyclist who loves a road trip to discover new places, Vlad has been recognised alongside Andy as amongst the LDC Top 50 most ambitious business leaders in 2021. So what's the story behind the story? Without further ado, let's get into it. Vlad Nanu, welcome to the Extrology podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on as my guest, and I appreciate your time. Really looking forward to getting stuck into conversations around all things Amdaris and indeed life and career and all those sorts of good things. But with, as is customary with Extrology, I like to start with the early years. Just a bit of background from your perspective. So, where did you grow up, and what therefore was childhood like for you?
Thanks, Lee, for inviting. It's quite interesting because I've listened to a few of your podcasts, so it's nice to be a guest as well. So to your question, very interesting question. I grew up in a country which doesn't exist anymore. It was called the Soviet Union. So it collapsed in 91, but the sub-country or one of the republics is called Moldova. So I was born in one country but grew up in a different. So I was born in Soviet Union but grew up in Moldova.
And what therefore was childhood like for you?
Childhood was fun, as everyone likes their childhood. It was different. It was a combination because it was in between kind of two worlds. One setup was collapsing while we were trying to adopt a more Western life. So I think that kind of added to the fun in my childhood because we still had a little bit of benefits of the communist system. The benefits you can still like. Obviously, there are lots of negative about it, but equally kind of having access or just starting to have access to American culture, American movies, European culture, European movies, and companies and brands. So it was a lot of fun.
Had you a big family, siblings, brothers, sisters? What was it in that sense? What was growing up like?
It's not very big family. But it's so I grew up in a kind of third generation, if you want, of families which were started to be more contemporary. So our grandparents would have lots of children and stuff like that, living in villages. I grew up in a city, so for us was like a more modern, late 20th century type of setup.
And what were your interests as a child?
I was an engineer from day one, right? I was always interested in, fixing stuff, looking inside, opening all sorts of, stereo, radio, photography. So I knew that I will become a tech person sooner or later.
Was there a pivotal moment that you recall that first sparked that interest in engineering?
No, I can't really remember. Probably, if I talk about software engineering, that definitely was when I had the chance to play my first video game. So a video game was kind of a main driver for probably lots of kids of my age. So when I played my first video game was we didn't have computers at home at that time. We would have like a specialized. I want to say internet cafes, but we didn't have internet either. So it was like a more like gaming halls, and we would play, and I absolutely loved it. So I would go again and again and again. It was different. It was not like the gaming machines, which you would normally have. It was a little bit more sophisticated. So at that point, I thought, okay, that's something really, really interesting. I want to learn more.
So who are your heroes as a child?
as a child, didn't really have much heroes as such because we didn't really have much access to probably movies would be the main source of inspiration. And normal kind of, again, that era movies like Terminator and or something like that. But later on, when I started to be more involved in computers, the normal standard heroes, Microsoft, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all those are the standard guys we were trying to look up.
So you studied, am I right? You studied software engineering at university. Yeah. Was there a point at which you thought, actually, what has initially perhaps been an interest and then for want of a better word, a hobby? As I played video games when I was a kid. I still would now, given half the chance, but played video games as a kid. Was there a point at which you thought, actually, there's an academic pursuit here, which arguably then might subsequently lead to a career?
Yes. So I started relatively early, even before going to university. We start to do programming. So so my passion was pretty strong. So to put this into the perspective, my parents wouldn't buy me a computer because they just wouldn't really understand why, and they wouldn't really have the money, I guess, or even if they had, they didn't see this as a priority. So I had to convince them that I can sell my bike so I can buy a computer. Which they said, oh, okay, well, if you do it, then it's up to you, really. Which I did, and we with my friends, we all did the same thing, and we started to program, very basic games. We would buy magazines and try to copy the code and produce something. So by the time I went to university studying computer science, we were quite advanced in programming. So I never had any doubts. It was pretty obvious for me. It was, I was finishing school and I was accepted to university before the year ended. So I was still in school and I was invited. Actually, me and my friend, both of us, we both had a scholarship already at uni before we even finished school.
And can you remember that first computer? I grew up in the 80s, schooled in the 80s here in the UK. I often I reflect on my children's access to technology through their academic, and they're in their very late teens now. But I remember explaining to my son that my school had, I think, 6 BBC computers. I can't remember if they're BBC A, BBC B. We learnt a little bit of basic. We might have had an hour's worth of tuition in a computer room once a week, but that was the extent to which technology influenced our lives. And then it subsequently became video games. But can you remember that first computer?
Yes, I do. So we had, it's very interesting the way Soviet Union was set up, if you think about it. And later Moldova, although it was a quite isolated country as such, it seems like they used to love to copy Western technology. So all these Soviet Union computers, they were 100% copies of Western computers. So my computer, which was produced in Moldova and produced in Soviet Union, was a one-to-one copy to Microsoft Z80, I think, computer. And my friend's computer was a copy of British Sinclair. So it was produced in Moldova, produced in Soviet Union, right? So we would buy and have access to magazines from the West. We didn't have internet, so you couldn't download anything. You'd have to go on the market and buy from dodgy dealers computer magazines. So at school, actually, we were, when my teacher would ask me to help her to set up school computers because they had even kind of worse than what I had. I don't think I had very, very powerful computer either. So I used to have a cassettes. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes,
where you just have to have a stereo and you put the cassette and sometimes the game won't load and you had to fiddle with a screwdriver to make the pitch higher or lower. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. On reflection, looking at the kids, I kind of start understanding. Maybe I'm getting old because it's always, in my time it was more interesting.
But how much of an, I'm jumping the gun ever so slightly, but how much of an advantage do you think that having that kind of rudimentary understanding as to the constructs of programming and even hardware, arguably, in comparison to what we have today, how much of an advantage do you think that's been through your career?
I think we our generation and generation before us and so on, we always like to believe that there is an advantage. In reality, it's not. In reality, that's why our fathers or a generation older than us work hard so I can get it easier, right? And that's why I work hard so my kids or your kids, our kids can get it easier. And that's called progress. So I think although, there is a nostalgia and there is a kind of thinking, I was lucky or I had a better life or I knew more or I had to work harder. In reality, I think what we did, and we're still doing it, is actually building that path away for next generation to build something greater. And it does work. If you think about this, we were fiddling with really rudimentary games, like pixels or whatever, running around the screen. And now computers are everywhere. Computers are, saving lives, and computers are flying airplanes and rockets. So without that work, which was done before my generation, and me contributing to the internet development, we wouldn't have had what the kids have now. So it's good. I'm very optimistic.
Was there ever a point, if you go back to your days of study, was there ever a point where the prospect of a career in software engineering or in technology, I guess, did you ever deviate? Was there ever a crossroads where you thought, maybe I'll go and do this? How did that play out?
Not really. No, I was very, very passionate. I was probably one of those generations, or one of that kid. I'm pretty sure current generations at uni, there are kids which do exactly the same. You can work all night and do something. The internet was just developing. It was 95, 96, 98. We have dial-up, that kind of classic dial-up noise, which still gives me comfort when I can hear it on the internet, right? So we were exploring. We were explorers. We were trying to understand what's there. We were connecting with people through different software. I think it was a software called ICQ, was another software called MRIC, was another, chats, and we were chatting with people in Canada and people in America and UK, and it was fun. It was really, really interesting. So I never had any doubts. My only worry back then was do I have enough time to absorb all this information? It was very fast moving, probably still moves very fast, but I don't feel this way anymore.
So tell us briefly about your early career pre-Amdaris. I'm interested to understand the inspiration behind it and how you got started. But before that, you had arguably more of a sort of, is there a typical career route, but perhaps more of a corporate type acquiring experiences and learning your trade? Yes, yeah. So from kind of my first job was part of a project which was done together with Moldovan government and an American government, US government, and the program was to build internet connections in remote villages in Moldova. It was a fantastic job. I was very, very lucky and fortunate because I had to connect different villages, different cities, remote cities, and teach people how to use internet. And I traveled the entire country. And that's really cool, because you think about there's a lot of people living in their countries, but actually they never actually traveled, they never actually discovered. While I had this opportunity, even if Moldova is a small country, I've been to pretty much every single corner of the country. And I learned quite a lot. So my second job, this is when I moved to America, to Silicon Valley, and I had a first software developer job in California, and that kind of completely different level. Things which I was doing in Moldova, and I thought I'm successful. Suddenly in America, it was like, everybody was like 1,000 times better than I was. So I had to work hard to catch up, but it was a lot of fun. Had you a job to go to, or did you, is this one of the classic tales of packing up your kit bag and getting on a plane and thinking, right, time for a change?
Yeah, that's what I did. I didn't have a job. No, really? I just packed my bag. Yes, I didn't have a job. So it was not necessarily a dream. It was the right opportunity to go there, and I didn't say no. I just took a chance to do it. Absolutely no regrets. Best time of my life. Really enjoyed it. Worked hard, but equally, again, traveled a lot. I've been to all major US cities. I learned how to work with customers. I learned how to work with colleagues. I worked how to do proper software development in a software company. I worked in San Francisco, which was one of my favorite cities still.
And this would have been, what, the mid-noughties, something like that, early mid-noughties? So this would have been about the time at which, almost arguably pre-Facebook.
No, it was pre-Facebook. I think my first account was actually while I was in America. So I signed up on Facebook because if you remember...
Is it MySpace beforehand? Is it MySpace?
I remember MySpace, yeah. I don't think I ever had an account, but I was just remembering how MySpace was dying. And I had friends because it's California and half of the people are IT and another half are artists, right? So I had lots of people, doing gigs and playing guitar and being rock stars. All of them had MySpace, and I never understood. To be honest, I didn't see the power of social media back then, especially when MySpace was dying. But I remember we were doing some really cool stuff, really interesting projects. Back then, it was for Blockbuster and big brands, which actually they were very cautious of adopting the internet, and we were pushing. We were trying to come up with new ideas. I had lots of friends working for Yahoo, so we were all meeting for a beer and discussing, okay, what do you guys do at Yahoo? They were telling us we would go back and try to copy them, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I signed up for Facebook while I was there because you had to be part of university and they were opening slowly, and it was not for everyone.
Yeah, and pre-iPhone, of course, as well, which arguably has totally changed the landscape. I think Google would have been around, wouldn't it? At that, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, Google was around. Yes, Google was a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Again, it was one of those. If you remember, it was Excite.com. It was Alta Vista, and Yahoo. Yahoo was a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially, I was living not far away from Yahoo headquarters. And everybody wanted to work for Yahoo. Google was not as cool as actually Yahoo, but it's fascinating how IT world is changing so fast. And
actually, in the grand scheme of things, not that long ago, in the scope of man's existence or human beings' existence on Earth, actually, it's just the minutest period of time, and yet the transformation has been vast, hasn't it? Absolutely vast. It's incredible.
And now, you're asking, it was before iPhone, there was before something else, and it sounds like we're very old, but we're actually not.
I'd like to think
the technology just moved really, really fast. Yeah. It's just every few years was something new. And this is what really excites me, and still excites me now. Obviously, I wouldn't spend a night updating my Windows anymore because I just I don't necessarily care anymore. It's like Windows 10, Windows 11. But I remember those days when it's 95 going to 98. How exciting. Oh, new Apple iMac Mini. Let's all buy minis. It was a big deal. Absolutely love them. So, the excitement is not, I'm not getting excited as much from technology, but I do get excited about the business aspect. So that's kind of my career progression where I started to appreciate more on the commercial side and business side of the technology.
What was the inspiration and arguably, therefore, the story behind Amdaris?
Yeah, the story was, so after we lived in America with my wife, we decided to come back to Europe because America was fun. It was very interesting. We've got a lot of experience, but America is not Europe. It's when you're young, when you don't have family, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I would advise anyone to give it a go if that's their dream. But we thought, okay, we are now getting to the stage where we would like to have family and children and a house and a dog and a cat and so on. And America didn't feel the right country. It was a little bit more difficult. So we decided to come back to Europe because it's closer to our family. It's culturally so different. It just fits better if you grow up in Europe. And almost it doesn't matter what country in Europe. We are still very, very, very similar and very, very different from Americans. Not necessarily in a good or a bad way. It's just a fact. So when we moved back to Europe, I started to think about technologies, as in can I do something about it? Because I saw how active our American colleagues, the amount of inventions, the amount of innovation is much, much, much higher than in Europe. And UK is a very fascinating country. I think this is the only country in Europe actually who invest quite a lot in technology. So it made perfect sense to start a career and a business in technology in the UK. And this is where the inspiration comes from.
And had you sort of entrepreneurial traits within the family that you'd always felt that was a path through which you'd follow? Had you perhaps picked that up from time in Silicon Valley, which of course is an obvious thing to say, but is famous for the amount of entrepreneurs that has spawned? Where had that sort of trait stemmed from within you?
Yes, I think Silicon Valley definitely inspired me. Definitely, you have it's almost like a golden rush time where everybody strikes for a startup, and I think that mentality is still there, which is fascinating. I think that's good. Probably I have something in my family. I just wouldn't know because you were not allowed to have a business in Soviet Union. So just that part is unknown to me. But also I was very, very lucky to meet good future business partners here in the UK. So we were helping each other and we were kind of fueling each other's enthusiasm. So that is also very important, I think.
Can you remember the point at which you thought, I'm going to start a business? And therefore, how did you get started?
Yeah. So my future business partner, he was running a design agency or a marketing agency. It was very trendy back then to kind of not have an IT company, but have like an agency building websites or posters or whatever. Half print, half digital. And he was chatting to me and he said, I'm trying to build this website and don't really have enough resources. Can you help? And I said, yeah, of course I can. So, 2-3 days later, I just presented him back, says, here you go, this is what you wanted. And he said, oh, that's great. That's really quick. How did you do it? And, there's no secrets. It's not like I'm super clever or something. I just used the latest technologies, which I knew. He was impressed. So he paid me once, he paid me twice, he paid me 3 times, and he said, you know what, why don't we do it together? So I said, yeah, let's do it. And this is how it started.
And those early days, had you a vision? People talk about, starting with the end in mind, and you talk. There's a, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that the start was with a view to transforming the technology landscape. What was the vision? How would you describe it?
No, it was not. It was very short-sighted, I think, because you're still young and, starting a family. We had, both me and my business partner had, our first kids, and the priorities are slightly different. And as any startup, it's you have a little bit of survival mode as well. So it's a little bit of catch-22. You never know. Of course, the dream was to do something nice and big. Of course, that always was there, but you couldn't visualize. It was for us was okay. Every day is a day where we need to do something and earn our salary and pay our colleagues, our staff. And it was difficult. I remember that when I was saying, we had, 20 people probably in our team, and we were chatting, it's like, it feels like I have 20 mortgages because I have to pay my mortgage, but I equally feel responsible for everybody else. And we need to make sure we earn enough money, we have enough cash flow, enough customers to make sure everybody's actually have a possibility to have a good life and be motivated financially. So that was the beginning, but kind of initial stages.
How did you overcome some of those early challenges?
So we started with, it was not enough. It felt something wrong. It felt like, okay, it's okay. We are paying 20 mortgages. Okay, not literally, but so to say. We are growing, but it didn't feel right. We were also making a decent amount of money as well, because technology is always very profitable business. But it didn't feel right. It's just like, okay, what's next? How this is not what heroes. You asked me about heroes. This is not what Bill Gates would have done. This is not what Steve Jobs would have done. So what's missing? Because again, I'm an IT guy, didn't have much understanding about how to run a business, and I have my business partner. And he came with an idea. Somebody recommended him, and he came with an idea saying, let's go back to university. Let's go to Cranfield University. Let's take a course of business growth. It was a very expensive course. It was a lot of money for us, but I just said, that's a brilliant idea. Let's go back to university. So we took a course. It was 12 months at Cranfield University. recommend any young entrepreneur who get kind of stuck in what's next. So you run out of intuition and you want a little bit of theory. I think it's a great course. I think there are other universities as well, not just this one. We chose Cranfield because it was a recommendation. I'm pretty sure you can go anywhere. Bristol, London, Manchester, plenty of universities where they can teach young entrepreneurs. But it was life-changing. It was completely changed our course. We understood, £1 million is just a entry point. You can earn $1 million, you can earn 3, you can earn 5, you can earn 10, 15, 20. It's just unlimited. It's all about this strategy. So this is when kind of the real business started.
Was strategy arguably your biggest takeaway, or what was your biggest takeaway from that Cranfield experience?
Many takeaways. So it's not just one particular way, but one thing which is really important is understanding the vision is extremely important. So vision is one of the main driver. So the ingredients would be vision, time, hard work, and just really continuous improving yourself. And time is very important because sometimes people just believe, they are trying something, it didn't work out in a month or so and they give up. And I think that's absolutely wrong. Time is an important ingredient in any success. You have to wait. You have to invest time. It's okay. You invest, a year, 2, 5, 10 years. That's okay too. So time is extremely important.
Was there a pivotal moment you recall whereby you thought, actually, do you know what? We're really onto something here. This business has huge potential, and accepting there would have been an awful lot of blood, sweat and tears to get you to that point, and I'm sure continues to be so today. But was there a pivotal moment where you thought, actually, we could have gone left or right, but that was the moment at which there was a real difference made?
Yes, absolutely. So the pivotal moment for us was most of our business. I can't remember the percentages, but just to make it sound really bad, I'll tell 80% of our business was relying on one customer. And we had many projects within that customer. It was a big FTSE 100 company, but it was 80% of our business. So one day, everything was good. The book, the Black Swan, right? Everything was good, and then suddenly you get this phone call saying, the headquarters in New York told us to stop any engagements with small companies, little companies, which we were. So you only have 3 months to finish what we are doing. It's not our choice. It's not our decision. You are great, but that's the direction the company takes because it's a big corporate and there's nothing they can do about it, which was the case. And that was probably the best thing what could have happened to us. That's really important. Sometimes you need a kickback. So it's okay, now let's think about this. Wrong to have 80% of your revenue from one customer. What can we do about it? How can we diversify our customers? How can we diversify our service offering? How can we grow? How can we look for new territories? How can we look outside of the UK? And suddenly the magic is you start thinking about it and things start to happen. It might not be as easy as I'm explaining, but it is like a magic because when you are comfortable, you don't think about strategy. And nothing is happening. When you are uncomfortable, then you start investing in your thoughts and thinking, and success comes later.
I think that's really interesting. I think it must be hard that I've been in similar circumstances myself, whereby you've gotten that, to your point, 80% with one company. You don't want to switch that off because, it's paying the bills. It's, it's profitable. It's profitable work. So there's probably a point. There's maybe a nag in the back of the mind that thinks there might be an element of risk with this, but hey, it seems sustainable, and we know they're a big company and they're paying on time and all these sorts of good things. But it's not oftentimes, to your point, until you get that painful conversation that then accelerates you off in a different direction. You diversify, you grow your portfolio, and then things start to change.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Lee. And I think two things which we took the right decision. So first of all, we said, you know what, I understand that you guys are going, but we still love you and we'll still serve until the last day you guys go, which we did. And we did a fantastic job. We are doing a fantastic job before. We did a fantastic job until very, very, very end day. And when that day came, they came back to us as, you know what, we don't want to switch off. So we have another 12-month extension because you are so great. We said, great, okay, good. So we have another 12 months to think about the transition. They did go 12 months later, they had to, but 2 years later they came back with even more projects. So kind of investing in your customers, loving them is extremely important. So that's one thing which we did. For us is it doesn't matter when the end date is or the end date never comes. We still have to be a good supplier. Always think about your customer. And this is what I learned from Silicon Valley, that American style, love your customer. Client is always right. And that probably American influence. The second ingredient which we did, we were looking at in our boardrooms, we had times where we had to do it every week because there was so much information and ever changing. We started to look at the percentages of our portfolio as a key metrics. And when we saw them at 80%, we wouldn't say to us, let's reduce that 80%. We were saying, let's get more customers so that 80% becomes less. So we were trying to build up more revenue and more clients to mitigate the risks. So every time a customer will start growing faster than we perhaps expected, we were seeing this as an opportunity to grow even faster with other customers. So we never said no to any growth opportunity. We were just trying to compensate with other directions.
Looking back, is there anything as you reflect on that timescale that you perhaps would have done differently?
Yes, I think we would have, if I can look back and change things, try to invest in the business and in the growth earlier would have been better. It took us about 4 or 5 years to really play small. But we did this because we were extremely comfortable. So I think sometimes successful businesses or successful startups are those who are struggling. And if you go through this struggle of growth for first 3-4 years, that makes your business more resilient and better and faster growth. And I think because we were a little bit too comfortable, we didn't really invest much in the first 4 or 5 years. And then later we just said, no, enough is enough. We need to go up. And the business started to grow, 40-50% year on year since. So.
And so that, I think that's an interesting point, that the decision to go, as I understand, you've been to market for external investment.
Yes, we did, yeah.
For those that are I think it's such an emotive decision, arguably, for any entrepreneur to know the point at which you see that potential, but that to realize that potential, you need more fuel, you need that investment to be able to, that capital for growth. What advice might you give to an aspiring entrepreneur out there today who's considering that prospect, but perhaps is at that crossroads where they're unsure and don't know quite which is the right direction of travel?
It's a very good question. I think what's really important is to understand what stages are we talking about here. So if you're a startup and you need money, then your best bet is family, friends, angel investors. Perhaps that's good. I don't have much experience. I just know I heard a lot of stories. So you give up quite a lot of equity. You give up quite a lot of value of your idea. Is that good or bad? It really depends on the idea and depends on what people are trying to build. For us, we were lucky to create a profitable business from day one. So we didn't need that type of investment. For us, the investment came much later when we actually discovered that we can grow. Year by year, we were increasing our revenue and our profitability. So for us, investment was for a different reason. We just wanted to create a partnership with someone who can see Amdaris as a platform to challenge big guys. And we looked around. It was the UK market is really good from the investment perspective. It is. I think there are lots of access to finance is not a problem in this part of the world. There is even more access to finance in America if somebody is interested. But for us, it's very important that we go with a company which will allow us to create strong partnerships with big PLCs and big companies. So that was our rationale. It was not necessarily access to money. We had money. We were profitable. It was all about connections, relationship. What's after? What's the day two after you got the investment? These type of questions I would suggest people ask before seeking finance.
So you've been, is that right, 13 years?
Yes.
13 years this year in business with Amdaris anyway. What have been the real high points from your perspective?
I'm still waiting for the high points.
Still to come.
Yeah, still to come. Yes. No, every day is interesting. We're still learning, and I'm a great believer in continuous improvement cycle. I always tell our guys to get excited about opportunities to learn. We have a very strong feedback mechanism from our clients, which we use Net Promoter Score. So we would ask our customers every 3 to 6 months. It depends who we ask. Bigger customer more often, smaller maybe not as often. And we get this feedback from our clients. We ask a very simple question, which is NPS score, but equally some additional questions. And every time I get a positive response, 10 out of 10 or 8, 9 out of 10, everybody seems very excited. And I said, no, don't get excited. That doesn't mean anything. We can't really improve it. That just tells you that you're doing a good job. Let's get excited about a 7 or a 5 or a 4 or you guys are rubbish. I don't want to work with you. That's exciting. Go back and ask why. Go back and improve. So I'm a great believer in kind of that continuous improvement cycle. And that's why I'm convinced that every day brings something new, every day brings something unique, and that will carry on as long as we are here running the company.
So for the sake of listeners, tell us a bit about the sort of work that you do.
So we are doing digital services. We're doing software development, any type of software development, any languages, any technologies. We don't really specialize in one single industry. We've tried to specialize in 2-3 industries until the next client coming and saying, look, I don't fit in your industry, but I want to work with you. So we said, okay, we'll add that industry to the list. And so it goes until that is too long. The list is too long. So we decided not to specialize necessarily on the industries, but specializing on the technologies and methodologies on how we deliver our services. We also do application support, which is 24/7. That could be bespoke software or off-the-shelf software. We do a lot of UI UX and product design. We have a fairly big product design team in Bristol. Bristol is a fantastic place. There's a lot of designers and product designers. We have different type of people. There's a lot of talent in the Southwest. So we work with various customers around the world. Actually, we don't have just in the UK clients, and we do digital transformation consultancy. So it's pretty much full spectrum of digital services from software perspective.
And how much of if I take this back a stage, if I look back at my day job in terms of talent and hiring, undeniably what's driven much of my workload over the last 2 years has been clearly a huge shift in consumer behavior first and foremost, but the rapid acceleration of digitization and transformation as a consequence has meant that so many businesses have had to, if not pivot, in many cases ultimately rip up the original business model and repurpose the organizer. But there's been so much change, and the direction of that travel was very apparent before the pandemic. My sense is the pandemic accelerated much of that need. Has that been your experience from what you've seen amongst your customers?
Yes, absolutely. That is correct. I mean, we were doing pretty well before the pandemic as well. We were growing year by year, same kind of trajectory. But pandemic was it's unique times. I think 20, 30, 50 years from now, we'll look at the pandemic in the similar way we look at 1920s, right? Because from one hand, at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody panicked, including us. And we had, we had a massive order book, and then every single customer would call us and says, cancel, because we can't afford it. We don't know. We are closing offices. We're closing businesses, and so on. And that was at the beginning of the pandemic. And then by probably June, July, we were getting calls like more. Can you double? Can you triple? I need more. It was fascinating from one perspective. It was sad times from many other aspects, but from technology, it's almost like one of those times where if you don't do it, you can be left behind. So everybody was actually doing it. And it's exciting times. There is not enough talent. Absolutely not. I think everyone is struggling with hiring, including us. Yes, we develop strategies. Yes, we know how to. Our recruitment arm is. We have in-house recruitment arm, which is working quite well. But we see a big gap in the market, and we also see a lot of projects. And every time I read about projects, because I'm signed up to different news feeds, big companies, small companies, they're all starting new systems, new CRMs, new social medias. I'm really excited. Even if we don't win those projects, I'm still really excited. That means actually the industry is moving on, which is great, because that will be the driver for the economy going forward. So I'm extremely positive about this. Yes, we have problems with staff and talent, but yes, we're going to, when I say we, I mean the entire industry. Yeah, we're going to sort it out. It's better this way than the other way when people don't have jobs.
Do you think that, though, the digitisation and the connectivity that we now, in varying degrees, but that generally, this is a broad sweeping statement in terms of the sense of the globe, but that there is an access to talent through that connectivity, that when technology is your offer, you can then arguably tap into that talent pool. As I understand it, you're in other locations. You're able to tap into talent pools where those talent pools reside. You're not restricted these days to a pool of talent in, for example, the Bristol area. You could go anywhere, arguably, and that must be very exciting as well.
Yes, absolutely. There are, and yes and no. It did give a lot of people access to a lot of kind of international talents, but on the other hand, we were competing internationally anyway. So who wanted to go kind of freelance way to get talents around the world, they could have done this before COVID. There are lots of platforms. However, when it comes to building serious products, you kind of want people to still be connected and together. For example, for us, our business model is, although we might be remote, we're talking about remote teams rather than remote individuals. So we're still getting them together. So having a Bristol-based product design team, we might, somebody lives in Bristol, somebody lives in Bath, somebody lives in Gloucester, but they all once in a while are in Bristol office where they're debating and coming up with ideas. So it's okay to work from home once in a while, but you are still together, and then you become a remote team. Similar we have with. We have developers in Romania, we have developers in Ukraine, Bulgaria, Moldova, we have developers in Dubai, in UAE, and customers. We have developers in Bristol. So we have these pockets, but we keep them together although they are remote. That's our business model. So from one hand, great, freelancing it's also. It's a very interesting niche and it's important for the economy and industry, but we are a little bit above that. We don't believe in kind of individualism. It's still teamwork.
What innovations in technology really excite you?
Many innovations. It's pretty much everything is exciting, but for me is lately more and more I'm interested in the business aspect. So the technology itself doesn't really makes a difference. It's what we can build with the technology makes me really exciting, and how we are doing this. So I'm a great believer in. I like agile. I've been agile since we started, right, in Amdaris. And I know people say, yeah, everybody talks about agile for the last 20 years. It's already overused. But I also, early days, I was trained in Prince 2 kind of waterfall. And more I am in technology, more I see the outcomes and results, better and better I understand the power of agile. So I'm a good believer of kind of having an idea, building something really quick, call it minimum viable product, call it something else. But you go with something, you present it to the market, and you start building version 2, version 3, version 4, and start to change the business itself. What doesn't excite me when somebody just takes a a classical business model and try to digitalize. It's like, oh, we used to do this on paper, now we're doing this on a computer. That doesn't excite. It's just like we just copied one process to another. But when somebody looks at the business processes, comes up with a completely new business model, quickly goes on the market, try to earn the share market, that's really interesting. So, what Uber did, what Deliveroo, Just Eat, these are type of really interesting technologies, which is like, it doesn't matter how they did it. What matters is what they did it and how they went to the market, because they, quick, aggressive, interesting, a lot of force, a lot of money. So that's what I started to like and appreciate more.
So what does the future look like for Amdaris?
So we're growing. We would like to develop UK more. We believe it's a great country from technology perspective. I think it's the leading country when it comes to Europe. We also would like to see Bristol as our hub to grow our Western territories. So we are looking at France. We're looking at Germany. We already opened an office in UAE, so we see this as the entire region. Obviously, we are competing with Asian colleagues over there, but we're very successful, so I'm pretty sure there's always a market for everyone. That's kind of stage one, and maybe at stage two in a few years, we'll be looking at North America.
So coming into your own experiences, Vlad, who has, do you think, been the greatest influence on your own career and why?
I think it's very hard to answer this question. This kind of influences all come and go, and you have to kind of self-inspire yourself. But, I was lucky to meet a few people in my life who was giving me kind of ideas and inspiration, and I'm very fortunate. And I do believe that, you can't do on your own. You have to have, I don't necessarily formal mentorships. I mean, that might be too expensive, or that might be too formal. But having good friends or good people around you who they've done it and they were successful in the past, and just them telling you their stories is extremely important. And I was lucky enough to meet a few of those people who helped me to shape my understanding. But in the end, you listen, but then you do your own stuff.
Is there anyone, we've mentioned a kind of, from that earlier career, there's some classic Bill Gates, Steve Jobs sort of technology names, but in terms of who you admire from a business perspective, is there anyone particularly that stands out for you?
I think Steve Jobs is still somebody which I like to read about him. Very controversial, very creative. It's a shame. It was an amazing brain. So I think he's still an inspiration for me and for others, because he had his ups and downs, and he always, it just happened. It's just fascinating how pretty much every single thing what we use now somehow has his name associated. Internet, yes, he did something for the internet with his next company. Cartoons, yeah, movies, he was there with computer graphics and Pixar. Apple, obviously, iPhones, yes. Even mouse, he nicked the idea from Xerox or whatever he took the idea from, right? So you look at it, it's really fascinating personality. I don't know how much time he had, or how much influence he used to have, because pretty much everything we do now somehow, directly or indirectly, is associated with his name. And even many years after he passed away. So it's an interesting person in computer science history.
So what drives you?
I think what we want is to get this sense of achievement, which is quite hard to get when you're an entrepreneur, because you're always a little bit hungry. And you're always kind of really hard on yourself, like, that's not enough. But looking at all the good stuff we can do, which we couldn't do in early days, that drives us. So I'll give you just a few examples. We decided to plant trees, and we keep planting for the last few years, twice a year. And just the ability of us being able to do so at this scale, we're not talking about, 2-3 trees here, scale, thousands. That's really, really cool because we can use, and we take some of the profit from our customers when we plant, the forest, which is designated. We send them a certificate saying, okay, well, look, 100 square meters of that forest is yours, well, based on the profit we made. And they're very excited. It's like, oh, can you take me there? Can we see it? And this type of things, we couldn't do it in the past. And that does actually gives that professional satisfaction. We also invest a lot in education, universities, schools. We've invested quite a lot in my university where I went in Moldova, because Moldova being a country with less access to the wealth. We just went and rebuilt the biggest auditorium, the biggest learning hall in the country actually, and we've done it ourselves from scratch. And I know, all branded in obviously in Amdaris, which is cool, but not just that. I'm just thinking that building was built in 84, and then in 2021. We rebuilt everything and recreated with latest technologies. That's quite a lot of years, which means for next 30 years, a lot of children and kids and young adults will actually use that study hall for their work. And that really excites us. Like, okay, well, that's what life is all about, right? Yeah. So we have many, many projects, many, many, many ideas, but obviously we need to earn money to implement all these ideas. So that's this is how it goes.
Which must be hugely rewarding. It begs the question as to what success perhaps means, therefore, to you.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And it does, it does diffuses. This concept of success is, if early days we were thinking, well, if we can do £1 million turnover, then that's a success. That success, in my head at least, it kind of diffuses. There's no such thing at one particular thing. It's multi-dimensional. It's all about and why. It's all about the colleagues. It's all about the family and the business, and now investors. Because again, what's really interesting, and I really like that element. Our investors is a fund which is funded by 5 biggest UK banks. So if you think about it, the money the banks invest in us is the money where we keep our savings, right? So we are the investors of our own investment. So having this kind of circular economy where we really help each other and being both sustainable and profitable for the benefits of, pension funds, which these banks are funding, and the banks themselves and all these savings, it's so interconnected, and just think, well, it's so cool to be part of a proper, large, powerful, and sustainable economy, and that makes me happy. So we're not kind of work in isolation.
So, what about away from work? What is it that you do to unwind and relax? Do you unwind and relax?
Yes, of course. Otherwise, life would have been difficult. Although, to be honest, it's not easy. It's not an easy task, especially in early days. Now we managed to build a very good management team that allowed me to spend more time on a strategic directions, which actually does help me to unwind. In our family, my wife is an entrepreneur as well, and quite successful. So we kind of we see each other often, but we try to avoid talking about business, because if we start, then it's very hard to stop. So yeah, it's just kind of try to live a normal life and try to forget about work, which is not easy.
I'd read that that wood turning was a passion, and that also that you might be found on a motorbike and heading off on the open road as perhaps another way of switching off.
Yes, absolutely. So general woodworking is very therapeutic, because you just can lock yourself into the garage and do something. Unfortunately, I don't have much time for that, but when I do, it's really satisfying, because you are on your own and you can just think and reflect. And same with motorbike, you are on your own. You don't have anyone in a passenger seat to talk with. So you just in your own thoughts. And I think that's extremely important to be able to craft yourself this kind of me time for the mental health and just that time gives you, it's almost like a like resting phase for your brain, because that times will give you eventually better and more and fresh ideas. So I absolutely enjoy when I can have the luxury of having those minutes or hours.
So what advice would you give 21-year-old you?
I think the advice is, I would say, keep working hard, dreaming. So it's very important. Have a vision, keep dreaming, make good friends, invest in friends, invest in relationships, trust friends as well. You have to trust people around you. Yeah, there's all sorts of situations, and I was very fortunate and lucky not to have any issues with anyone. But that's very important, because I think when it's hard, you need friends, you need connections, you need relationships, and you have to invest in them. So I think that is really, really important alongside the vision. You just have to believe, you have to see it, you have to come home and you close your eyes and you just visualize yourself in the future. That does help.
And what does the future look like for you?
So at the moment, we would like to achieve a sustainable growth. We would like to make sure the company is sustainable because growing is relatively easy. Building a good, sustainable business where we invest both in people and technology and services is a little bit different. My personal future, it's a little bit difficult. I don't know. We'll see.
And where might people go to find out more about Amdaris?
So if you go on our website, amdaris.com, you can find more. You can follow us on LinkedIn. You can follow me. I like to post LinkedIn messages. I absolutely love LinkedIn, by the way. It's professional. I can get quite a lot of inspiration from LinkedIn. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Vlad, I think it's a fascinating story, and I really appreciate you sharing those experiences with us here today. It's been really enjoyable. I wish you and your colleagues continued success, and I know that we'll continue to admire from afar the success that you enjoy. I know the effort that goes into making these things happen, but really, as I say, I appreciate you having taken the time out today to share your story with us, and I wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you very much, Lee. Thank you.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to today's Extrology podcast. I really appreciate your audience and ears. If you've enjoyed it, then why not hop onto iTunes and give us a review? I'd really appreciate anything that you might have to say. Any feedback always gratefully received, and look forward to hosting you next time. See you soon. Just a reminder, today's podcast is brought to you by Progresso Talent Partners. Visit www.progressotalent.com today for more information.